Hi, I'm Robert with Aventon Bikes. In this video, we'll be showing you how to install fenders and the rear rack on Aventon's Pace 0.3 e-bike. Before we jump into this, if you purchase the racks with the fenders, we recommend installing the fenders first and then the racks. Let's get started. We're going to start by assembling the front fender, which is the shorter fender of the two, along with the stay that has the slight bend near the eyelet holes. Take the flat silver bracket and place it underneath the fender. Take the stay and place it in between the two holes on the fender, making sure the stay has its bend oriented up. Take the black bracket and place it on top of the fender, then screw in the two hex bolts using a hex key. Then repeat this process for the remaining rear fender. To begin the installation process, remove the pre-installed mounting bolts in the frame. One is located at the bottom of the frame in front of the rear tire. The other two can be found on either side of the seat stays. Once the mounting bolts have been removed, take the larger rear fender and slide the plastic mounting bracket off. Set the fender on the rear tire with the mounting tab facing forward. Before placing the fender completely into place, reinstall the center mounting bracket. Place the front lip of the fender underneath the arch of the chain stays and secure it using a hex bolt and washer. Secure the fender stay to the frame of the bike. Then repeat the process on the other side. Secure the fender to the arch of the seat stay by screwing in the hex bolt. Be sure there is enough clearance between the fender and the wheel before tightening. Now it is time to install the front fender. Begin by removing the hex bolts and washers found on each side of the fork dropouts. Take the longer bolt and place a washer onto it. Then slide the bolt in through the front of the fork. Next, remove the rubber protective cap from the center fender mount and slide the fender onto the front tire, making sure that the stays are behind the fork as shown here. Place the center mounting bracket onto the bolt and install the washer and nut. Finger tighten but don't secure all the way. Now secure the front fender stays to each side of the fork, making sure to tighten fully. Repeat this process on the other side. Finally, use the hex key and 10mm wrench to secure the center fender bracket at the arch of the fork. Make sure to adjust the height of the fender so there is adequate clearance between the fender and the tire. And that's it. You've installed both fenders. Now let's move forward with the installation of the rear rack. Just a quick reminder, if you plan to purchase or have purchased fenders, we recommend installing the fenders before the rack. Start by removing the hardware and packaging from the components. Next, take the rear rack and place it so the rack stays are on the bottom. It's important to make sure that the rack stays are pointed towards the tapered section of the rack. The Aventon logo is at the rear of the rack. Next, locate the triangular rack stay with an R at the base of the stay. This will go on the right side of the rack. Make sure that the arrow on the sticker is oriented towards the front of the rack. Place the left stay on the opposite side, again making sure that the arrow is facing towards the front of the rack. Next, locate the 4 shortest bolts and place a large washer onto each of them. Now tilt the rack so that the right side is on the top. Align the right rack stay with the 2 bolt holes on the right side. Using 2 of the shorter bolts with washers, secure the right rack stay into place. Repeat this process again for the left rack stay. With the 4 bolts fully tightened, double check to make sure that the arrows on the rack stays face forward to the front of the rack. Before placing the rack on the bike, remove the 2 bolts from the seat stays. There is one located on each side of the bike. Place a washer on each of the 2 medium-length bolts that came with the rack. Make sure that the rack is in the correct forward orientation and align the stays with the corresponding attachment points. Tighten these bolts to the lower portion of the stays on each side of the bike. Next, place a washer on the longest bolt. Insert the bolt through the front stay and bridge mount. Place a washer and nut onto the bolt and use the wrench that came with the rack to fully secure it. Before completing this next step, it may be necessary to remove the seat from the bike to gain access to the bolts. With the seat out of the way, slide the rack so that it is parallel and level with the ground. Once in place, secure it into position by tightening both of the top bolts. With everything secure, reinsert the seat. Finally, take the rear rack brace and remove the bolts and clamps from each end of the bracket. Place the bracket on the rear section of the rack stays. Re-secure the clamps to hold the bracket into place, making sure that it remains level while tightening. And that's it.